typical first thing out of her mouth is he's a racist. What did he say that was racist right there? Okay, why would the air traffic controllers be hiring people with psychiatric disorders? He didn't even read off the entire list. History of alcoholism, history of drug abuse, no problem. Can't hear, no problem. Can't speak, have a speech impediment, no problem.
Well, talking of President Trump, his press conference last night has come under fire for suggesting that diversity, equality and inclusion schemes could be behind the Washington plane crash tragedy. Let's remind ourselves just about what he said.
The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite.
Well, earlier this afternoon, Congresswoman and chair of the Black Caucus, Yvette Clarke, accused the president of racism.
While we wait for the absolute truth of the matter, it is with great and righteous indignation that I recognize the comments and actions of one individual in particular who did not attempt whatsoever to wait for those facts. The individual who, rather than emphasize with the families of the 67 victims of his heartbreaking disaster, attempt to unify a grieving country, or even offer his prayers, chose to capitalize on this tragedy by furthering his racist, insane agenda against America's diverse employees.
Well, we can talk now to Hal Lambert, who's a Republican megadonor who served on Donald Trump's inauguration committee back in 2016. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what were you thinking when you heard the president yesterday? Can you give us your response to his comments, please?
Well, I heard what you said earlier, by the way. You didn't even say the correct term for DEI. It's not diversity equality. It's diversity equity, which is a Marxist deal. But regardless, everybody's jumping on Trump. She's calling him a racist. Typical thing. Typical first thing out of her mouth is he's a racist. What did he say that was racist right there? Okay. Why would the air traffic controllers be hiring people with psychiatric disorders? He didn't even read off the entire list. History of alcoholism, history of drug abuse, no problem. Can't hear, no problem. Can't speak, have a speech impediment, no problem. I mean, this is absurd. That's the problem. And this is a symptom of the entire U.S. government under the Biden administration and started under the Obama administration, where it doesn't matter what your accomplishments are. It doesn't matter whether you have merit or not. We're going to go after these specific qualities, these specific groups. It doesn't matter what the job is. It doesn't matter how safe it is or not safe. Why would you have that recruiting for air traffic controllers on your website and in your documents that you're doing to recruit people when you have a shortage already? It makes no sense. You ought to be recruiting the best. That's what Trump was trying to say. And it does look like it was an air traffic controller issue because from what I've read, a supervisor lets somebody go home early, surprise, during a very high traffic time. So you had one person working both the helicopter traffic and the air traffic. And that could have led to this problem. You should have had two people. That's the rules. You're supposed to have two during certain periods of time. It was during that period of time. So that you have one on helicopters and one on the air traffic. In this case, you had one doing both. And we're going to find out if that was the ultimate cause of this, but it certainly wouldn't have helped.
Right, but we don't yet know if anyone with disabilities was actually hired as an air traffic controller in this case, or indeed if anyone on Wednesday actually fitted that category, do we?
But that's not the point. It's not whether it's some specific person. It's like, what is the point of having that be your recruitment? Why would you be recruiting people with psychiatric disorders, history of alcoholism, history of drug abuse? Why would you be recruiting those people into air traffic control?
Okay, but the point, if I may, is that the suggestion is that it is linked specifically to this attack. These were in some of the first words issued after this, and that's why it's relevant, why it's been spoken at this point, I guess, is what I want to ask you. Do you think it was appropriate to make these comments so soon after this attack and to make it relevant to this American tragedy?
Well, it's relevant in the sense that it shows the culture that has really become a factor in everything that has to do with the U.S. government and in a lot of private companies as well, which is we're not going to look at what the actual job is. We're going to put whoever we want in there, and we're going to put people that are clearly not capable and unqualified into jobs, including jobs like this, which require life or death decisions and a lot of stress. That's what Trump was trying to say yesterday, was that there's a lot of stress in this job. It's a very difficult job. Why wouldn't we have the highest quality standards to get into this job? versus what appears to be the lowest quality standard you could possibly put in.
Okay, but I'm sorry to press you on this point. Is it not a point made prematurely? We don't know if anyone with disabilities was actually hired as air traffic controllers in this point, or whether anyone on Wednesday actually fitted that category. Don't you want to wait for the investigation first? The question, I think, is, and that is levelled against Trump by some of his critics, is that he moves quickly to blame in these cases. In moments where people might be looking for consolation, he becomes quickly in a mode where he wants to blame even before we necessarily know what the full facts of the case are.
Well, I think what it shows is the culture that is at the air traffic controller management level that's there. And again, it was directed by the Biden administration. So they're doing what they're basically forced to do. So we'll find out if it was a direct case in this situation. What we do know is that it looks like a supervisor let somebody go home early and left one person to do the job of two people. So that clearly looks to be a factor. And then, as you said earlier on an earlier interview, it does look like the helicopter potentially was flying too high. So they're going to be looking at that as well. You get different reports out. It's hard to know. I've talked to military people that say that, hey, 500 hours or 1,000 hours is not that many hours. That's not an experienced crew on the helicopter. It should be much higher. My understanding is that you need 1,500 hours to be a commercial airline pilot. Is that different for military versus commercial? We're going to find out all of that. But there clearly were errors made. This was clearly a human error issue, not a mechanical issue or anything like that. And so, where is the error? Is it air traffic control? Is it the helicopter? Is it both? We're going to find all that out. Hopefully not, a year from now, but hopefully pretty soon.
Can I ask you about Pete Buttigieg? This was obviously the former transport secretary under President Biden. He's been singled out for criticism by Trump. Do you think there's any sense in which, because he's a possible Democrat candidate in 2028, it might be relevant to this particular conversation?
Well, it's relevant because he was in charge of this area of the government. And he has openly spoken about DEI the entire time. He even went back to do some absurd comments about how bridges built in the past were racist. They built racist bridges for some, I don't know what, I couldn't even follow his train of thought on how a bridge was racist. But, that's been his MO the entire time he's been in that job. So that's why he brought up Buttigieg. I don't think he's worried about Pete Buttigieg being the presidential nominee for the Democrats. If he is, that'd be great for Republicans because he will lose badly.
Hal Lambert, thank you very much for joining us. That was the Republican megadonor who served in Donald Trump's inauguration committee in 2016.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.